Hello, this is Jordan Reed, and you are listening to the Ramshackle Glam audioblog. Today's story is about imposter syndrome. I will explain what that means in a moment. It takes place at this beautiful resort where I was asked to come give the keynote speech to a group of women. It was meant to be an inspirational speech. That was the the goal. And I found myself unable to write one. Who the hell do I think I am? All right, so this story is called The Imposter. I've given a few talks over the years at conferences and such. I know how to do it by now. I've mostly gotten over my crippling stage fright that I suffered from very inconveniently for the decade that I worked as an actress. Made auditions kind of rough. But with the talks, I have a bit of a formula going by now. I start with the basic bio. I make a few self-deprecating jokes about those actress years I just mentioned. I talk about what it was like starting a blog as a business back when that didn't exist. The business model just hadn't been invented yet. I tick off a list of experiences that my site has led to. I've gotten to host TV shows, I've written books, etc. And it all makes me sound pretty successful and pretty together, and at least passably like the kind of person who should be giving a talk. Maybe not a TED Talk, but let's say like a TEDx talk. And then I open it up for questions. Usually people ask me about my kids and my husband. How does your family factor into your job? How do brand integrations work? How do you get them? How do you find work-life balance? That kind of thing. And I always end my talks the same way. I describe my 5-year plan, because that's the number one question I get everywhere I go, every interview I've ever done. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And my answer is always the same, and it's a really unsatisfying one, albeit true. I don't know. I can't know. Because virtually nothing about my career thus far has been a thing I've seen coming. It feels like there's been a new surprise and, very fortunately, usually an exciting one, around every corner. I'm always stunned by the kinds of projects that people, like actual professional people, seem willing to set on the narrow little shoulders of someone who's really, if we're being honest, just winging it. The end. Thank you for taking the time to listen. Stick around for cocktails and hors d'oeuvres if you can. Except when I went to this retreat full of inspirational women to give this keynote speech, that is not the talk that I gave. I actually almost turned down the offer to do this talk, despite the fact that it took place in Napa Valley and involved glamping and wonderful food, and obviously that sounded like a thing I should automatically say yes to. But I did almost turn it down because every time I thought about it, I couldn't get away from the fundamental question, one that's worried at the edges of my mind for as long as I can recall, but that has begun dragging on me even more heavily in recent months. Who the hell do I think I am? Sure, all of the things that I talk about in my go-to speech happened, but they're pretty categorically not what was happening right then. So I simply could not wrap my mind around the idea of sitting in front of a group of talented, accomplished, proactive women and just sliding past the reality of my life at that moment. I also really did not want to talk about the reality of my life at that moment, because inspiration, as I understand it, doesn't usually come from women whose lives have very recently fallen entirely to shreds. Have you ever heard of imposter syndrome? Here is the technical Google source definition. A psychological pattern in which an individual doubts their accomplishments and has a persistent internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud. Here are some examples of my own personal and raging case of imposter syndrome. 1. I get a book deal. I write the book. I write 3 more. One is a bestseller, another seems like it might be once it's released. 2 get published in multiple countries. I remain absolutely certain that I have pulled off a masterful act of deception, having somehow used my latent magical powers to trick 2 publishing houses and tens of thousands of people into thinking I'm a person who writes words that other people should pay actual money to read. 2, I have a baby and then another. I am, by all technical and theoretical definitions of the word, a mother. I remain firmly convinced that at any moment the parent police will arrive and pull off my mask, only to reveal a terrified child who should not be in charge of anything more responsibility requiring than a hamster. 3, right at the beginning of my career, at the precise tipping point when companies start paying real money to tap into the influence of blogs and social media, I sign with a management company, and they negotiate deal after deal after deal. I can remember in my bones what it felt like to sit at my old HR law firm desk, rifling through file folders of information I did not care about and trying not to cry at the thought of doing it again the next day and the next. And the opportunities and possibilities and numbers of my new job stun me. Time and again, I give interviews crediting my management company for everything. Everything. I was in the right place at the right time. I'm so lucky. 4, I get invited to speak at a conference, the one we've been talking about. I think about the talk I'll give, the one I know by heart. I picture the women who paid money to be there listening to my words. I know I do not deserve their careful attention. I say yes anyway, because saying yes is a thing that I've been doing for 10 years now, and life has shown me that it tends to be a good idea, even when, or especially when, you don't want to. And so, instead of giving that talk that I usually give, I write a new one. I have been a successful blogger for 10 years. I have made a great deal of money from a business that I built from scratch with my own 2 hands. I remain wholly convinced that every good thing that has happened to me over the years has very little, if anything, to do with my actual abilities. A decade after I start my career, that same management company that I credited with every iota of every success I've ever had fires me. No one ever says the word fire, of course. It's framed as a parting of ways. It's based on industry shifts that I've seen coming a long way off, and it isn't surprising or even insulting. It's just business. But still. Even given the degree to which I can wrap my mind around the hows and whys behind the fact that the career shift I've been slowly building towards has become less of a good idea and more of a fucking emergency, I am achingly aware that it has finally happened. My luck has run out, and my accomplishments have been revealed as what they've been all along, a series of sleights of hand that no one has seemed to recognize as trickery save for me. You're not supposed to talk about these things, you know. You're supposed to paint a pretty picture, a picture that says what you want it to say in case anybody's looking. I just can't do it, not anymore. Some more reality for you while we're at it. I had a misdiagnosed ectopic pregnancy not long ago. My stomach filled up with blood and I almost died. I lost parts of my body I had never given much thought to and never knew I could miss quite so much. My formerly treated insomnia returned like a freight train. I sold the house that I thought I would be living in forever, and I moved the contents of a 4-bedroom house 400 miles, dragging a trailer full of plants behind my Toyota while my dog sat comatose on my lap and my cats yowled in their carriers, hating me. I am divorcing my husband. I'm in a new house, in a new neighborhood. I miss my friends. Divorced. Fired. Broken. Walking on shaking legs into a brand new life. That's just my reality right now. So when I thought about standing in front of a group of women and talking about what a success I am, I knew I couldn't do it, but I said yes anyway. I put off writing my talk as long as I could. And a few days before I was due to leave, I was laying there on the floor in my furnitureless house, drinking tap water out of an empty CVS earplug container and wondering how in God's name I ended up here. And I reached for my computer and I wrote the words you're listening to right now. Summer, my life as I knew it for over a decade fell to pieces. But as the days started to grow shorter, here is what happened. I started a new business. I got first one client and then another, and then more. I got an email from a brand wanting to collaborate with me, not because my manager had found them, but because they'd found me. Then another email, and then more. I met new people who reminded me what it felt like to be really, really happy. I remembered that I'm good at what I do, maybe even great sometimes. I remembered that luck is nice, but luck is also what you make of it. So, here is my truth right this very moment. I am a writer. I am a hustler. I am an ex-wife who tried and tried until she could not try anymore. I'm a very good mother, if not a perfect one. I'm smart. I'm weird and creative. And I will make this new life of mine work because I have to. Things will go wrong and mistakes will be made. And even so, I will be born again and again and again. Because I want to be, because I have to be, and mostly because I can. Thank you so much for listening to Ramshackle Glam Audioblog. I am Jordan, and take care.